Hey guys, it's Russell back, and I'm here in the kitchen where I could get a good comparison here of my old crank sprocket. Now what do you see wrong with that? Yep, it's deformed. Here's a brand new one. That is what it's supposed to look like. That is what the original one, this one's got 378,000 miles on it. The question is this what's screwing my timing up? I think maybe it is. In all theory, the only thing that is holding the engine back from starting, it seems, is a timing issue. And well, this could explain that. This is definitely a problem for sure, which would explain why my timing always would go out after I cranked it for extended periods of time after having checked it over and over. So I've got a, this is a, I couldn't locate a factory part. They don't make it anymore. Well, they do make it, there's just none available in this country, and it would take too long to get it. But this is a Phoebe, it's a German made part, so hopefully this will work just fine. No damage on the crank. I've got a brand new bolt from Volkswagen, stretch bolt. We're going to be torquing that to 66 foot-pounds, and then we're going to do a quarter of a turn, or 90 degrees. And yeah, so I'm excited. I'm going to get this back together. Hopefully I will be able to crank it today with you guys here. It is misting outside. I don't know if it's going to start raining, but I'm going to get as far as I can. And there's enough talking. Let's go get this done. All right, so the bolt that I'm going to use is a factory Volkswagen bolt. They want you to oil the threads slightly and also the shoulder of the bolt. So I'm going to do that now. This is a stretch bolt, or called torque to yield. And it doesn't use any Loctite. It basically just uses a prescribed amount of torque, which in this case is 66 foot-pounds. In addition to that, once you hit that number, you will turn the bolt another, what did I say, quarter turn, or 90 degrees. This particular bolt uses a 12-point, what is this, a 19mm socket. I am using a impact socket. I'm not obviously going to use it on the impact, but let me set the torque wrench. All right, there's 66 foot-pounds. And the gear is just going to fit right on the crank. It can only go on one way if you don't put it on correctly. Like if you try to put it here, there's a flat spot. It's almost like a keyway. All right. So once that's in, we're going to take our bolt and thread the bolt in. Let me move this out of the way so you guys can see better. All right. Now, part of the problem is how you're going to hold the engine while you torque it. That's where the metal nerd tool comes in, and I just see now that the bracket is not going to fit without removing the power steering pump bracket. That's unfortunate. Yep. So let me do that, and then we'll be right back. All right, I have I had to modify a little bit the bracket. I didn't have to take it all the way off. I just slid it down. And because the car is so high, I have this resting against the A-arm. So I've already gone to 66 foot-pounds. Now I have to do this 1/4 of a turn. So let's do it. Wow, that is tight. Actually, I think I need a pipe. I can't imagine how many foot-pounds this is. So I'm about halfway there. Let me grab a something that's got a longer reach. All right, I had a little bit longer breaker bar. Problem is there's nothing really to hold on to. I'm trying not to get in the shot. Okay, we're getting there. So it was digging into the aluminum just a little bit. Yeah. It's all right. It worked. All right, now that gear is on just the way it's supposed to be on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and reset my top dead center on the flywheel, because this of course moved a little bit from this apparatus. Wow. Okay, so I've got something I want to show you guys real quick. I put everything back together. Everything's buttoned up, timing's good, everything's installed. Check this out. Finally! Yes, it runs. Finally. Oh my gosh. More than 3 months. 3 months. I set the pump timing yesterday. Hopefully this computer is really old, this laptop, and the screen's not very good, so it's just a hair above the middle. So I have this, it's plotting the different points when it's changing every couple of seconds, and I've got it kind of right in the middle. So it's always going to bounce around like that. Yes, starts. It starts. So I'm going to give you guys a synopsis of actually the chain of events that happened to from start to finish. Just concise, but let me do that where it's a little quieter. Okay guys, so I wanted to give you a synopsis, an overview of actually what happened in a timeline that I think that caused the symptoms and the failures on the Jetta. At the very beginning, if you watched any of these videos, I was having trouble starting the car in the morning. It would take about 10-15 seconds of actual cranking before the car would fire. This went on for about a month, and I noticed that I had a leak in the seal on the injector pump where the head is. So I replaced that, thinking that that probably was what was causing it. Now, I didn't know that there was another factor that's very important that was actually causing this, but it seemed logical that that would be the injection pump would be losing its prime, and it would take a while to crank and it would fire over. So I replaced the seal. It fixed the leak. It did not at all help the starting of the car, but it would take about 10-15 seconds. So after about a month's time of this, it started to take longer and longer. It would take 30 seconds, 45 seconds to start it. Now, it's interesting to note that after the car started, I could turn it right back off and start it right back again. So this led me down a road of checking and rechecking. I checked the glow plugs, the injectors, the glow plug circuit. I replaced the relay 109. I cut the catalytic converter off. Thankfully, I did do that because it was about 80% clogged, but none of these things that I did at all made the car start. Then it got to a point where the car just would not start anymore at all. And I continued to replace the fuel filter. I bypassed the fuel tank. It was anything that a lot of the guys on the forums were saying, you need to check this, try this, check the compression. The list goes on and on and on. You can look at the past videos. So one thing that was very odd that I noted was that when I redid the timing belt, which was another thing that I did, I noticed that after I got it set, it was set perfect, and after extended cranking sessions, I went back and checked the timing again, and lo and behold, it was off. And this was very perplexing. So I did the timing belt job about 6 or 7 times, and finally I decided, well, it's probably a combination of things. I talked to a guy at Triplet Diesel in Texas. They rebuild these pumps all the time, and I told him my symptoms, and he gave me a couple other things to try, which didn't help, and he said, well, it looks like your pump is getting tired. He told me that the pumps, those specific Volkswagen pumps, don't usually last more than about 200,000 miles before they start getting really tired. Well, I took the pump off, sent it in there. He tore it down and called me the day after he tore it down and said, yeah, your pump's got a problem. He said it wasn't what I thought it was. There's a mechanism in the pump that draws the fuel out of the tank, similar to a lift pump, if you will. This particular model of car does not have an electric lift pump, so it was hardly drawing any fuel at all. It was very, very weak. He said the rest of the pump actually looked really good, and he asked me again how many miles were on the pump, and I said 320,000, and he was astonished. He said those pumps just don't look that good inside there. He said I can tell you're using some kind of fuel additive, and I told him since the car was new, I've had the car 20 years. He said I told him I was using the Amsoil diesel fuel modifier, and I put it in there every fill up. And he said, well, you need to keep doing whatever you're doing, at least on that regard, because the rest of the pump inside looked really good. But because he had it all tore down, he went ahead and rebuilt the entire pump. Sent me the pump back. I put it on thinking, hey, this is going to fix it. And it didn't start. It still didn't start. It did the exact same thing. Now, it was drawing fuel really, really, really strong because I had replaced my lines with clear lines. I wanted to see what was going on in the fuel send and return lines, and it didn't fix it. That was definitely a problem, but that was not what was keeping it from starting. So I got on my VAGCOM and I got with one of the guys over at Jetta Tdi, and he said, crank the car for about 6 seconds and send me the data logs. So I did, and he emailed me back the next day and said, I know what the problem is. He says, I need to verify it. I'll get back with you tomorrow. So what he actually did was he had a customer car that was in the shop. It was a 98 TDI, I believe, and the customer gave him permission to disable the car with what he thought was my problem and see if he could reproduce the same data logs. And he was able to exactly reproduce it. He said, your engine is still mistimed. So this was just really perplexing. I checked ripped the timing belt off again, redid the entire thing. It was perfect. Still, it acted, the very first time I cranked it, it acted like it wanted to start, and then it would just crank and crank and crank. So I went and took the timing belt off again, and I said, let me take the crank pulley, or the crank gear off that it holds the bottom of the timing belt. So I took the crank gear off, and lo and behold, the crank gear was deformed on the back. It had walked off of its position and had started to rotate. So my theory is that when I did the timing belt, the timing set, and of course I'm trying to start it and it's moving just a little bit because that gear was just as tight as could be, but I guess the torque from the cranking was throwing the timing off. All it has to be off is a few degrees for it not to start. So I went ahead and got a new gear. I was able to find an actual German gear, brand new one, and I replaced the harmonic balancer while it was off, put it all back together, and fired right up, as you guys see on the video. So let's just assume I hadn't taken the pump to have been rebuilt, and I knew it was the crank gear. I would probably not have been able to get it started again after I changed the fuel filter, because the pump would not have been able to draw fuel into the filter and ultimately into the pump itself. So now, having driven the car, it feels like it's new again as far as the power, because it was starting to get a little tired. And I think some of that is A, the pump was getting tired, B, my catalytic converter was at least probably 80% clogged. It's the original catalytic converter on that car. It's no longer on there. I had to take it off. And of course the timing was starting to go out. So yeah, it's got some major power now, like it did when it was new. You don't really notice how slowly it degrades. So what I have to do now is I've got to replace where the catalytic converter was with a pipe, because that car is choking me when I drive it, because the exhaust is coming right out of the turbo into the downpipe, and it's basically right there. So I need to get that addressed, and then I can drive it. It's good. It's got good power. It runs good. Idles good. It starts instantly. The other day it was about 40 degrees and it fired just instantaneously up like it used to. So I hope if anybody has this problem, take a look at that crank gear. You know, I'm going to be replacing that probably every 200,000 miles or so, just as a general principle. Or I will at least take it off. If I see any deformation of the metal, then there's going to be a new gear going back on there. So yeah, you know, everything, I got so many new parts on there. I had to put a new starter on there because I wore the old one out. I put a brand spanking new Vallejo on there, not a rebuilt Bosch. It's got a brand new battery. I put a different group on there. That was the biggest one I could fit on that battery tray. So yeah, the car's ready to go. Air's still ice cold, and it's running really good. So hopefully I won't have any more snafus on the way to 500,000 miles, which is what I'm trying to get to. So this video is It's almost 21 minutes long, so I apologize for that, but I know there's a lot of people that helped me on the forums. I thank you for all your suggestions and for sticking with me in this, and hope that you know, you guys, if you have a TDI, if you're having a weird problem like I did, that you just reach out to the community and we can help each other, and maybe something that I've done, go back and look at some of my past videos, something I've done maybe will help you figure your problem out. But thank you guys, and I'm going to go play with the Jetta some. I'll talk to everybody later. Bye-bye.